This is the way we've always done it. This can be one of the most damaging phrases in law enforcement. On today's episode of the podcast, I speak with Corporal Todd Kessler of the Bucks County, Pennsylvania Sheriff's Office. Todd is pioneering a new and exciting program called the Pathfinder Initiative. This is a program that transitions away from what we think of as the more traditional law enforcement model. It moves towards a model that focuses more on the safest possible outcome based on listening, communication, and empathy. I saw Todd speak on this topic at a conference recently, and it really drew me in. I think this is something that if you're open-minded to, this can be really beneficial to law enforcement across the country. So here he is, Todd Kessler with the Bucks County Sheriff's Office. You and I, we share a common viewpoint of a phrase out there that we hear all the time. And I hear it a lot in the legal profession, and I hear it a lot in the law enforcement profession. Something to the effect of, well, that's the way we've always done it. And I know you feel similar to me about that. What are your thoughts on that phrase?
It makes me cringe every time I hear it. It's just, to me, it's no way to live, to work. To me, that means you're not gonna adapt. You're not gonna change. And with society and our country changing on a daily basis, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt. And I think law enforcement, especially, should have that need, should have that desire to adapt and change, and get out of that mindset of this is how we've always done it. Because there's a lot of times where that just doesn't work.
Yes. Yeah, I know. We talked about that when we met at the conference, and I was like, man, I got to give this guy on the podcast because you were thinking what I was thinking. And speaking of that, you're involved in a program that I found incredibly fascinating, and I thought, man, this is really cool. I really like it. It's called the Pathfinder Initiative. What is the Pathfinder Initiative? How does it work? What are you involved with?
So the Pathfinder Initiative was a program that myself and another one of my partners, my team members here, created. And it's a way for us to adapt and change in law enforcement to what we see on a daily basis, and also to what are some of the hot topics in law enforcement. Over the past few years, we've seen that black cloud that's been hovering over law enforcement, and the way that we've been portrayed in the media, and some of it's justifiable and some of it rightfully so. I mean, we've had some really horrible incidents, and we look at ourselves and we say, you know what, maybe we're not directly involved in those incidents, but if we're not trying to do anything to get better or to change, then we're part of it. So for us, it was a way to try to do better. We just took a look at ourselves and said, what can we do better? And the hot topics that we focused on are mental health and community relations, as well as peer support or self-care. So, we see the mental health issue has been continually growing in our country, especially when it comes to law enforcement and the people that we may encounter on a daily basis. And obviously we have a big gap with our communities, and being able to relate and to be able to work together and in a positive way. And then some of that really dives into the last part where law enforcement takes on a lot of different responsibilities and carries a lot of different things internally that a lot of times they don't share, they don't get out. And it may lead to some really bad things, whether it's, loss of job or, maybe you're getting divorced or, God forbid, in some cases, it may be suicide. Officer suicide numbers are fairly high too. So we wanted to address those issues and see what we can do better. And the Pathfinder Initiative came out from that. So those are the areas that we work in. We do it on a daily basis here in our county, and just continuing to try to do better and to try to adapt to what we see.
All right. So excellent. How does it work in practice? So you are a sheriff deputy. As part of the program, what do you guys do? Like, what does it entail?
So right now, with manpower short, as it is pretty much across the nation, right now there's 3 of us that do this full time. And myself, I work inside of our courthouse. I handle most of the stuff that comes into the courthouse with mental health. I have some team members that are in the courthouse with me as well that are uniformed still. I wear plain clothes like I'm dressed right now. And I have two team members that are on the street that are plainclothes officers that really, really go out and address the community relations portion of what we do, as well as the mental health aspect. So I kind of oversee the program and the initiative, and then my team members are ones that are out there active in the streets, and with the community. So I'm here to respond to anything that may happen in the courthouse when it involves mental health, or it's in a courtroom, whether it's in like the adult probation office or domestic relations office, whatever it might be. As well as I team up with some individuals in mental health court, and I'm kind of like the law enforcement liaison for that. And then my team members on the street are doing follow-ups with some of our mental health cases that we've encountered. They are doing proactively doing community service. They're mentoring juveniles inside of schools, like kids that would be, maybe on the verge of getting into the juvenile justice system. They're going out to try to get ahead of the game, meet with them, mentor them a little bit. In some cases, we've even we've been court ordered to supervise a juvenile so that they could maybe get some community service done, maybe do some mentoring, do some programs, and then they avoid getting either A, charges, or B, going into the justice system at all. So real quick, that's some of the stuff that we do. But it's right now, like I said, 3 of us full time. Yeah. So manpower, as short as it is, it's always a struggle, but we're doing what we can.
Like you said, it's a new concept. It's not the way that we've always done it before. And usually when you have something new and cutting edge, it's sometimes it's met with resistance. How did this get started? What, because you said this was a program that you and some of your other fellow officers created. What brought it on, and why did you guys decide to start it? Kind of how did it come together?
So originally, it was brought to my attention from my previous sheriff. He knew about my passion in mental health and about crisis intervention training and stuff like that. So he ended up seeing a documentary on HBO called Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops. And he texted me immediately after he saw it, and he's like, "You really got to check this out." He goes, "If you don't have HBO, you got to get it." So I didn't at the time, so I got it. And then my chief at the time said the same thing. He watched it, and he's like, "Yeah, you got to check this out. This is right up your alley." So I check out the documentary, watched it, loved it, and immediately texted the sheriff back, was like, "Hey, we can do this here. Like, this is something we can do." And that documentary focuses on 2 officers that work for a mental health unit at San Antonio's police department. Mm-hmm. I think both now have moved on, but at the time they were, crisis intervention trained, and they kind of started up the program inside their own department and then took it to their chief and said, "Hey, we would love to start this mental health unit." And that's what they did. And now they run full time as a mental health unit. So that to me was kind of the fuel to the fire. But we understood that what we do in the sheriff's office here is quite a bit different than what the San Antonio Police Department does. So we wanted to make it a similar thing, but also kind of gear more towards what we do here in this county. And then we wanted to expand on it a little bit as well. And that's where the community relations came in. That's where the homeless outreach came in. And that's where the peer support and, kind of taking care of your own self-care thing is also born out of it as well. So that was where the fuel to the fire kind of came. Yeah. That documentary.
Yeah. Where does your passion come from with wanting to address the crisis intervention, specifically, like you said, what's a very hot topic, the mental health aspect?
Well, for me, there was some personal motivators as well as, as work motivators. I've been a SWAT negotiator for probably close to 8 years now, and crisis intervention officer for about the same time. So my training in crisis intervention through our county was phenomenal. So that was probably one of the big kickers that really got me going into, like, this is something I would enjoy doing, because it really addresses, somebody's situation on a personal level and trying to help them, obviously better their quality of life. But personally as well, I've had some mental health diagnoses within my family. I suffer from PTSD from my time overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. My father is bipolar and lives with that, to this day. His twin brother passed away of dementia. I believe my dad's first son, my half brother, is schizophrenic as well. So we kind of got it all over the place within the family. So there's some history there. And then there's just that want and desire to learn more about it and, try to help wherever you can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you for your service also. And I was watching a Tony Robbins thing the other day. I know it's kind of cliche, but the guy's like a coach for like the most successful people in the world. And that was exactly what he talked about. When you're passionate about something, when you're hungry about something, the results that you can accomplish, it's like incredible. And I sensed that when I saw your presentation on this. Let me ask you this. What is different about how the Pathfinder Initiative approaches things like mental illness and policing? What's different about how they approach it versus how like a uniformed officer that has traditional use of force training, Graham v. Connor? What's the different style of approach there?
I would say it's more of a human approach to what we do. And just simply getting back to treating people like the way you want to be treated. And a lot of times with, officers maybe on a daily basis, especially in local police departments or city police departments, as compared to what we do at the sheriff's office, there's not a whole lot of time. There may be days where you don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate to one individual person. So you kind of lose that personal touch with what's going on. We really try to focus in our program with, let's really put that care and compassion into their situation and try to recognize that it's important to them. So we need to listen to try to understand it, see where they're coming from, and try to give them that same, compassion back and say, hey, look, we get where you're coming from. We're not in your shoes. We don't know what your life's been like. We don't know what this situation has led you to, but, help us try to understand it. And then let's see if we can help, we can work together to get you through this and get to the next step. I guess it's simply just a human approach to what we do.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it for? How long's the program been going on?
The program, I believe we started up, I'd say probably now around 3 years ago, with really building it up and trying to get that vision of where we wanted to be and where we wanted to go. Actively working it full time has been just shy of a year. I think we started late October, early November, when we got the blessing to go full time, go out and do it every day, do what you guys do, and have at it. So it's been just about under a year for that, but we've been building it and networking and collaborating and doing everything we can to build, kind of get our name out there, kind of, promote a little bit, but like at the same time, it's been a lot of work just trying to reach out to other mental health organizations, community outreach organizations, street outreach organizations, the schools. I mean, we've been trying to reach out and connect with any and everybody we can to say, hey, we're here. This is what we do. If there's any way at all we can help out, we'd love to do it. And it's been, like I said, about almost 3 years of just that.
Nice. In the last 2-3 years, do you have any examples, any success stories or things that you can point to that say this is why it's working and it could have been a different outcome if we just took the traditional approach?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a couple off the top of my head. Well, one in particular, actually, just this morning as I was working, I got pulled up to our front lobby to work the lines there, the security lines, and one of our court reporters came in and she taps me on the shoulder and she's like, hey, you know that guy that usually comes in with the dog every time? And I'm like, yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. And the name was escaping me at the time, but I kind of grabbed onto it. And she goes, yeah. He was back in our courtroom yesterday, and you should really see the difference in this guy. And she's like, he brought up your name, and he said he loved working with you. And this was a guy that probably around a year ago, I got called to a courtroom to talk with this guy because he was kind of, going into like a little bit of a manic episode. So just reaching out to him, talking to him that day, kind of getting him calmed down, kind of finding out what's going on with him, sticking with him a few days after that, taking phone calls from him, reaching out to him to see if he's okay, stuff like that. This now, like a year later, the court reporter's like, so-and-so Lauren, I believe she said that, you really did a nice job with him and you should see him now. He looks great. He sounds great. He's all, neat and cleaned up, and it sounds like his mental health is doing a lot better. And it was nice to hear that, because I hadn't spoken to him personally in, probably, 6 months or so. But to know that he was back in here, but doing much, much better than he was when I first encountered him, was nice. And then another story that I could think of was just recently, I think it was right before the conference, was the SWAT call out that I had, and I negotiated with a guy that was suicidal, and he had he had lost his wife like 6 months earlier, and was in a tough spot, and was just kind of just letting go, and he just didn't have the will to live anymore. And I responded to the call, ended up talking with him, right outside of his bedroom. He was, laying in bed with a gun to his head, and was, telling me he's going to go. He's going to go. I'm going to talk to my kids so I can say goodbye. And we were going on and on, back and forth for, close to 7 hours of talking to the guy. And just kind of just trying some different approaches with him. Giving him, he would give me reasons why he thought he should die, and I would give him reasons why I thought he should live. And talking about his wife, and how, I said, look, I'm a sheriff from Bucks County. I don't live in this town that you live in. I don't work in this town you live in. I said, you ever think that maybe the reason I'm here is because your wife sent me here? Like, maybe she's still looking after you. Maybe she still cares about you. And I said, it's maybe it's just a coincidence. I said, but maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's something like that. And, we kind of talked about that for a little bit. And he was kind of shocked to find out that I wasn't the local PD that the town he lives in, the guys he usually would normally see. So after we finally got him to come out of the room safely, we started doing visits with him at the hospital. I drove down to see him the very next day. Went back a week later on the anniversary of his 49th wedding anniversary of him and his wife, because that was one of the other kind of motivators for him that day, was that his anniversary was coming up. And I ended up getting a note from the head of the department down there, the mental health department that he was staying at. And she wrote me a thank you letter saying, like, your visits have really changed his outlook on his therapy and his life moving forward. And she's like, I just thank you for coming down to visit, because I think your visits alone have meant so much to him that he's now motivated to try to get better and to try to put this behind him and move forward from it. So those are two examples I can think of off the top of my head that, kind of show the approach that, we would take, and what we do, and, some positive results from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. The fact that you not only do you go and you take a different approach when you get to the scene, but then the follow-up, and that's having that be part of the kind of the program, what you guys do. It's not something that we're used to seeing. What about, like, when you respond to a call like that, you got an individual with a gun, he's holding it to his head. Now, if you're right out of the academy, you've been trained on use of force and Graham v. Connor, it could be considered a justifiable situation to use force if you got an individual with a gun, because of, the immediacy of the threat, they could quickly turn it. How do you, and you're a more experienced officer, do you have any advice maybe for young officers, or maybe just tell me, how does the program handle kind of your safety tactics versus taking that different approach? Because if you come in there like a typical officer, that could end in a totally different situation. It could end in a use of force.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I got more examples of that too, but we've had situations where, tactically, most people would look at what we do as unsafe. I can think of off the top of my head, going out to the homeless camp and talking to some of the people out there, and one of the guys walking around with a knife in his hand, and he's like sharpening the blade, like right in front of us. And, 4 of us are out there, but 3 of us are like literally right around him talking to him, and nobody's making any moves to their gun. Nobody's doing anything like that. We do have a cover officer in the back who's one of our SWAT guys who I would trust more than anybody to have my back in that situation. So he's kind of in the back, like, observing everything that's going on, while 3 of us are up there talking to this guy still with the knife in his hand, and he's just sharpening and just talking. And that's all we're doing, is just talking to him. But I think tactically, you always have to have it in the back of your mind. What am I doing if this happens? And I was doing that the day at the house with the SWAT call out. What do I do if he points it at me? What do I do if he pulls it, and he takes his own life. How quickly can I get in that room to try to do life-saving measures? So you're constantly thinking of that stuff, or I think you have to be anyway, while still trying to figure out what where's this conversation going? How am I going to get him to come down, to my level? How am I going to de-escalate this? How are we going to get him more on an even keel so that we can have a more normal conversation? And I think a lot of times it's just you got to ask questions. You got to get information. Why are we here in this situation? What got you here? I see you're in pain. I see that you're hurting. Help me understand why you're hurting. Help me understand why you're in pain. I can certainly help you, but I need to understand what you need help with, if you want help at all. But, it's just little things like that. It's the information gathering and taking that time to say, hey, I'm here I'm here in this situation for whatever reason. You didn't want me here, so you're probably not here to hurt me. So let me see how I can help you prevent you from hurting yourself, kind of a thing. Like, it's tough in the moment to really try to slow down and think about that stuff. But you still have to be tactically sound at the same time, but still you try the approach of what can I do to help you?
Yes.
And I think that's my number one always is I need to help this person. What can I do?
And I don't think it's necessarily like you're not doing things that are tactically not safe. When you look at Graham versus Connor, it says there may be more than one reasonable outcome. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're coming in just because someone has a weapon. Yeah, could it be justified use of force in that situation? Yes, but the point is there could be multiple. There's more than one reasonable outcome, and that sounds like what you guys are kind of looking at there. And I also noticed, I think part of your kind of theme when you talk about this is you talk about doing this through communication, listening, understanding, empathy. Have you found that to go a long way when you're actually listen to someone and empathize with what their situation is?
Yeah, I think so, because we've had plenty of situations here where, like I said, a lot of times we don't have that amount of time to sit and listen. Myself now having more of the freedom to kind of do my own thing, and I'm not constantly responding to calls left and right. I have that time. The one thing I point out that's probably the hardest for anybody to do is to listen without formulating a response. A lot of times we'll listen, and as we're listening, we're thinking of what to say next. And trying to just sit there and listen just for the sake of listening can be very, very hard. And a lot of times I've seen that most of the times things will de-escalate themselves just by listening, just by let it rip, just have at it. If you're pissed off and you got things on your brain and you want to just let it out, then let it out. I'm here to listen to it. Say it to me, because we're going to be safe here. If you do it in a different situation, you might not be as safe, but you're going to be safe here with me. If you want to air it all out, air it out right now. Let's get to the bottom of it. Get that color to your face to turn back to normal color, and let's, we'll cool out. But a lot of it's done just by listening, just by sitting there and allowing them to vent, to get it out. Try to get that level of understanding, and then empathizing with them. Like, I understand why you would feel that way. We haven't lived their lives. We haven't walked in their shoes. We haven't done. The only way we're going to understand it is to listen and let them tell us what it is that they're feeling. Yeah. So I feel like that's probably led to more safe outcomes for us than anything else. It's just that ability to listen and communicate.
Excellent. Do you guys also, you mentioned you go to like homeless camps. There's some focus on mental health. Do you guys ever go to like areas of the community where maybe the only interaction they've ever had with law enforcement is negative, and try to work on community relations there? What is that like?
Yeah. We try to do that pretty much every day. My team on the road, especially, they're out there every day just driving around the community. If they're not at meetings with kids, mentoring, or if they're not at the homeless camps, working with the community outreach to try to get them, some services or some housing or anything like that, they literally would just drive around the community, stop and talk to people just to say hi. We've had meetings with some of the local youth in some of the tougher neighborhoods in our county to find out what it is that, what they think about law enforcement, how they feel about it. Would they approach us? Would they talk to us? And kind of the overwhelming response we got was that, law enforcement can be pretty scary when they approach, and they have all the gear on, and the big vests and everything, all the tools around the waist. I mean, they talk about how intimidating it can be. So they almost feel like they're on a defensive right away, just based off of an appearance, just the way we look. So we obviously have a different approach, a different look to what we do. And we've gotten some pretty good feedback from that. Now, there's going to be different sides of that. You're going to have people that feel like, well, no, I want to see the law enforcement officer in uniform because that's professional. That's who I want to talk to. And then you're going to have the other side of it is going to say, oh, I don't want to talk to the guy in uniform. I'm intimidated by that. I'd rather talk to you because you just look like I do. You're just in street clothes. You're in jeans and, Timbs like that.
Yeah.
That's what they would rather see and rather approach, that officer as opposed to the other one. So, there's some give and take with that. You never know what you're going to get, but the only way you're going to find out what they want is if you talk to them. So
have you noticed any change? Has there been, is it different? Are you getting more positive response out of it? Is it making an effect, I guess?
We get a lot of good positive feedback from our community. Some people that have even have gone to, hey, who do I need to speak to make sure you guys keep doing this? And who do I need to talk to? I want to write letters. I'll call people, whatever you need. The overwhelming response has been positive in the community. And they've said they've even have been waiting for something like this. Like, where have you guys been? Like, we were hoping, the police would get back involved with the communities again and be a part of it. And I think that it's not that they don't want to. There's no officers. There's no time. We talk about, shortages across the nation, especially after COVID hit, and there's supply chain shortages. There's, shortages here, there, everywhere. You can't get people to work at, pizza shops, let alone law enforcement. I mean, we're short everywhere. So, I think some of the law enforcement agencies want to do this. They just don't have the manpower to do it. So we could also fall into that category. We probably don't have the manpower to do this, 24/7, but we're trying to do what we can with the time that we have. And I believe that the response has been very positive, and people have been enjoying seeing us out there and talking to our team.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here to talk about this program, because I started my company because I'm a career prosecutor. I've worked with law enforcement my whole career. I saw from the civil aspect in defending officers in these lawsuits, at least in the lawsuits that I was involved with, how nasty they are, because you have an attorney that comes in, there's a lot of money on the table. So they're going to try to create a narrative, and they want to make this officer look like the ones that you see on TV, so we can drive that settlement up. And that causes a lot of problems in the community. Almost every officer that I've defended in a lawsuit or been somehow related to a complaint or something, it's almost always a lack of understanding of the law, a lack of understanding on how to just talk to people. Sometimes it wasn't malicious intent. It wasn't because of all the stuff that the media says. It was just lack of training. And that's why I started this, because I wanted to be a resource to law enforcement, to be the kind of what we traditionally think of in law enforcement, the community hero kind of thing. It sounds like, has this helped with that? Do you see an increase in morale with the officers on your team? A lot of officers that I talk to, sometimes they want to leave law enforcement because morale's low. They don't feel like they're making a difference. How's this affected that?
I believe that for the people that are on our team that really have a passion for doing stuff like this, the morale has gone up for them. And I believe that they've almost been waiting for something like this themselves. And I'm a firm believer in, as an organization, you're probably going to be more successful if you put people in the places where they're strongest. Our team members have, some people say the gift of gab or whatever you want to, call it, but I believe they have the ability to listen. And I think that's what makes them so good at their jobs. But they also have a desire to help. And I think, a lot of times you come in, out of the academy and you're like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to save lives. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And everything's positive. And then you start to kind of kind of get that jaded point of view, that like that burnout starts to
Yeah.
set in a little bit. And you kind of lose that focus of what you had when you first came in. Um, and I think I was at that same point. I wanted to continue in this career because I love it, and I started to just kind of see like, man, I'm in like a revolving door. It's the same thing every single day. What can I do to get out of that, break that cycle, but also do something I'm passionate about? And that's when CIT came around. That's when negotiating came around. And that's when, this idea of this program, like we can go out, still be law enforcement, still try to help people, and do it in a way that not only will be beneficial for the community and for the people we interact with, but I mean, selfishly, you kind of get a little bit of a good feeling about it yourself, and that carries you to the next. Like, oh, I want
Yeah.
to feel that again. Like you help somebody out one day, and they sincerely thank you, and they want to talk to you some more, and that makes you feel good when you get to come home and share that story, and now you want it again. Now you want to keep chasing that feeling, and I think for our team members, I think it's been great, and I've even tried to incorporate some other officers in our department who may not have seen what we do kind of in the same light that we do. They, we weren't eye to eye on like, hey, I think what you're doing is great, but I don't think we really need it. All right, well, let's come experience some of the stuff that we do. Come see some of the training that we get. Come talk to some of the people that we talk to, and then tell me how you think. And then you start to see like, wow, I didn't realize that's what you guys do. Like, well, now you get to see it. So now their kind of point of view changes a little bit. The perception changes a little bit. And then you get more people that want to be a part of it because they love to see that. They're like, man, I never would have gotten to do that unless, you told me about it or I was involved in it with you. Like it. So it's been great to start to see that come around as well. So adding more, some better morale here, some positive thinking, some positive interactions. And if we can keep carrying that and let that snowball and grow and grow and grow, I think it's only
Yeah.
going to make this department and this county better. So we're going to keep going at
Yeah.
it.
When you first told me about the program, I saw and it registered very quickly with me that it was different than some other programs. Like, after 2020, when we saw all the calls for defund the police and police reform, there was reimagined policing and community policing and let's defund the police and bring in social workers. When you told me what you guys were doing, I was like, this is different. This is not that. It's different. But I kind of gave you a hard time a little bit, just kind of messing with you and saying like, oh, this is just another one of those kind of, progressive hug a thug program type things. And I knew it was different, but have you gotten some of that from people that don't quite understand what it is you guys are doing? And this would be the last question I ask you.
Yeah.
How is it different than that?
Well, I mean, we've heard the hug a thug thing, which I love that. I think it's hilarious. And yeah, we've gotten, oh, you're, what do the one time I get oh, you're a coddler, you're carrying a baby, that you're just babying everybody. No, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is actually taking the time to listen to somebody because, what some people would perceive as, someone walks into the courtroom and they're a little off and they seem like they're, they got a twitch or they're talking to themselves or something. Oh, well, there must be high on meth. Oh, they must be high on this. How do you know that? You don't. You're making an assumption. So we go over and we interact with them. Hey, what do you got going on? And then you start to notice little things like they start having a conversation with somebody over their shoulder and there's nobody there. Okay, so maybe there's a mental health aspect to this. You start to pick up on different things. The people that usually give us the hardest time are the ones that won't take the time to either hear you out or find out what is going on with somebody to see that there may be something else going on. And I think if sometimes they would just, get out of their own way and open up their mind for just like a half a second to say, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe there is something else going on here. All right. So then how can we deal with that situation? It is funny. You get both sides. You get the, oh, I think this is great. And then you get the other, oh, I think this is horrible. I don't know why you guys are doing. We don't need to be doing this. And again, I think those people that would say we don't need to be doing this are the ones that say, well, that's not what we do. That's not what that's not what a sheriff deputy does. That's not deputy work, or that's not how we've always done it.
This is the way we've always done it.
Yeah, exactly. We get that a lot. You're not doing deputy work. then tell me what deputy work is, so I can, we can put that definition down, because deputy work is growing. It's growing every day. Police officers' work is growing every day. You have to adapt. You have to change. You have to be open to changing, and you have to, hopefully, you have people that are willing to do it and to go forward and keep it moving.
Well, I don't remember where I heard it from. It's something to the effect of it's not always enough to think outside the box, but sometimes you have to act outside the box. And like I said earlier, when you're doing something new and innovative, it's almost always going to be met with resistance. And talking to you and listening to your program, I can see that this is not your typical approach. It's an approach that you've taken that works. You're empathizing, you're listening, you're taking situations that could justifiably be a use of force, and you're having it become a positive outcome. And it's small, and you're growing it. You're really passionate about it. I think it's a great program, and that's why I wanted to bring you on here, because we have officers kind of all over the place now watching the old podcast here. The one final thing that I'll ask you, is there any information that if anyone's interested in learning more about the program, do you have a call to action, or where can they find out more or learn more? Or maybe they want to bring it to their own department. Are you able to be the liaison for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to get my card out, because I don't know my numbers off the top of my head. At least my work cell,
I'll
anyway.
I'll the link in the description and all that stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they can call me. They can call my work number, call my cell number. They can they can email me, however they want to contact me. I believe I'm also on Twitter. I'm going to say it's at Pathfinder 8569 is my handle there. The Pathfinder Initiative is on Facebook as well. There's a page for that. It's open to the public, so anybody can see it. But yeah, I can give you all the information for contact stuff, and later on, and we can add that however you do it.
When we put this episode live, if you're listening to the podcast, you can find it in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube, look down there, and all of it will be down there. All of Todd's contact information. Well, Todd, that's about 35 minutes. We generally only go about 15 minutes on this podcast, and it's free, so I don't want to give away too much free info. I really appreciate you coming on. We mentioned a conference. I saw you present on this topic in Kansas City at the National Sheriff's Association, and it was one of them. It stood out more than any other presentation I saw there. We got a chance to, discuss it where the real learning happens when we were drinking sodas at the bar watching baseball.
That's right.
And I really got to learn about it.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic program. Been a prosecutor my whole career, and I haven't seen. I've seen lots of attempts at community policing, but it's more of the way we've always done it approach, where yours is truly different. I like where you're going. Wish you the best of luck. If you're an officer out there, reach out. I think you'll see when you really get a chance to go in depth and talk to Todd about it, you'll see that it is different and it's effective, and it will reduce lawsuits. And if it increases morale in your community, that alone will reduce lawsuits and bring up morale. So, Todd, thanks very much. I appreciate it. And maybe we'll
I appreciate it.
We'll get you on here some other time, give us an update and see how everything's going. So, all right, everybody, thanks for joining in. We'll see you on the next episode. Stay safe. Remember, every battle is won before it's fought. See you next time.